Hello and welcome to my presentation. My presentation is strategies for helping struggling readers. And when I first started thinking about this project, I wanted it to be a 2-day presentation, but realistically looking at the time frame that I would like to do this and feel most beneficial would be at the beginning of the school year for teachers at pre-service week, and there's just not a lot of time. So I created a 1-day presentation with 4 breakout sessions um, that will give participants a chance to learn about the strategies and also do some hands-on learning and teaching from it. So when the day begins, we would have participants would have an agenda and it would show how the day would run. So we'd have an overview and then each of the breakout sessions has a 45-minute time frame. At the end bottom of the agenda, they would see the 4 sessions and kind of what it's about and who the presenter is and what they're going to learn from it. So then they can choose it in any order. There are breaks in between um, to give them a chance to get what they need. I really wanted to make sure the breakout sessions were in different rooms because it really, as an adult learner, I know that sitting in one spot for a long time can be very um, distracting, but also you need movement. So getting up and walking and having each one in a different room will give them a chance to have a different space to look at and not just the same thing over and over. So we would start with a bit of a welcome and an overview of the session, which is what this PowerPoint does. It kind of gives some information about reading and why it's important and how learning happens. And then it dives into the different breakout room um, and information about each. I did not go into depth into this PowerPoint for the welcome because I don't want to give all the information for the breakout sessions here. Um, I I want them to know what they're going to be learning and some information about why it's important, but then give them what they need in the session so they're not hearing it twice. So there are 4 of those, and I would go through what each part is. So we would have fluency reading, teaching correct sounds, spelling inventories, word tracking, and then um, they would be able to use their agenda, or this would be up on top and they'd be able to pick out which one they want to start with. So then they would be able to start there, and inside each of those breakout sessions there are handouts and things that they would learn inside of it. So fluency is one, and in here they would have book suggestions that are high interest but lower readability. Because when we're talking about students with that are struggling with reading, a lot of times they think they can only read baby books, but there are a lot of good chapter books out there that are lower level that a sixth grader who's reading at a third grade level can read and it not be noticeable that it's a lower level book. So you want them to have choices that they can put in their own classroom libraries and help students find. And then also in here, each folder for the breakout session will have a 3-2-1 that they're able to fill out as they go through so they can put some ideas down. Um, what have they learned? How would they use this in the classroom? And then any questions they would still need or want from the learning. And then in the fluency, they would get some information about the passages, where we can find them in our curriculum reading wonders, how we can show the level readability so you can know which passage to use for where your students are. And they go up to different levels, how to add other pieces of fluency on there. So you're not just tracking the words they can read in a minute, but you're also tracking, are they using expression? Are they, changing their intonation with the dialogue? Comprehension, you can use the standards that you're teaching to go along with the different passages, and then how to score them and what to do with the graphs. And where to start with them. Sometimes you get the information, but you don't know what to do. So there's some examples of how we graph them and what each part of that means. And then the next folder for the breakout sessions for making sounds, This is one in which, when you're teaching students to say sounds and to decode and breaking and blending words together, a lot of times you don't realize that it's easy to add an to the end of sounds, m, k, b, and you want to clip those pieces off. So it's b, k, l. And so when students are struggling with that and adding those swells to it, you want to be able to show them how to use their tongue and their mouth to make the sound they need to be able to blend those words fluently. So they would be able to get a picture that they could use to see how mouth placement plays a part in that. Um, and and how sounds really should sound, because a lot of times you don't think about it, but you add an when you're breaking sounds apart. Uh, and you don't mean to do it, but it can sometimes cause issues when students are blending together. They're going to add extra sounds into it. And then spelling inventories. This one is there are 3 different spelling inventories, and if you've never seen one, it's almost like a spelling test, so to speak. So you're giving them a word in a sentence and they're spelling it, and then what you do is you take those words and you score them on a sheet. And this tells you as a teacher where that student is in their spelling stage, but also it's great for intervention when they are having trouble reading words or blending, because you can see what they're having trouble with, short vowels or digraphs. Is it those long vowels, or is it the inflectional endings? Where are they at? So there's a primary, which is K through 3rd grade, and elementary, which is 1st through 6th grade. And yes, you can kind of use those interchangeably. The If a student in 2nd and 3rd grade are getting majority of the ones on the primary correctly, you can move them to elementary, and the elementary has a little bit more complex words for each of the spelling stages. So then you can kind of make it see if they're able to use those sounds and hear those sounds to spell the words in more complex words. And then there's a middle and high school level one, and you can kind of see how those words become more complex. Are they able to use the same patterns in those words, and where is it that they are having trouble with prefixes and suffixes and things like that? And then you can score those. So in this session, participants would actually be able to choose one of the inventories and do it on each other, and then score it and learn how to score it and what information it can give them from that. And then tracking words. This one is one of my favorites to do. When students track words, it's a technique that is taught to them when they're younger to help them follow along and keep pace as they're reading more complex sentences. And a lot of times you'll see a student start to track and then stop, and then they start losing their place as they're going through, or they'll pick it up with their other hand and lose some parts of where they're at in a sentence. And what I've learned is that tracking is a skill that they need their midline ability to help them do. And so if they aren't able to cross their midline, they're not going to be able to fully track words to help them with their reading. So what you want to do is you want to improve their midline crossing. And there are simple little things that you can do in the classroom and art class: scatter supplies, make them reach across their body and pick it up. Sports, baseball, tennis, basketball, they're having to cross their midlines to utilize the ball and to pass and things like that. Music class, they can do scarf dancing, so their hand is going up and down and around. Tug of war, playing Simon Says, all those different things you can do in the classroom at PE, art class, music class, and you can help students learn how to cross their midline, and that will help improve their ability to also track words for reading intervention. And then one of the last things that each participant would get at the end would be an overall evaluation form. And this would be for the overall PD. And they can score how they felt each part was, and then turn these in, name optional, so that we can get information on was the whole thing a success. So these are the different parts of my project, and references. And thank you very much.